Two vast vessels of power piloted by special humanoid beings. The Mecha Colossal Artifice from Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and the magical beings and mana from Final Fantasy, but specifically in this case, Final Fantasy XVI in the form of the Eikon. For those new to the series of mine, it's called Choose Your Hand, where I take what I call hands, which consists of items, powers, weapons, abilities, and things of those sort that are not characters, and compare them and see which of the hands I prefer and which I think is objectively superior as well. And if you're worried about spoilers, don't worry, I'll just be focusing on things in regards to the hands themselves, taking out as much context and story beats to prevent spoiling, but I will say what I do need to say for these hands. This might be an unexpected head-to-head, but after finishing Final Fantasy XVI on stream, I really wanted to do this. The next Choose Your Hand won't have Xenoblade, so we'll expand more because each one has had Xenoblade so far. So if you missed the first two, which was the Monado versus the Master Sword, and then a three-way battle between the Monado, the Aegis weapons, and the Sword of Origin, as well as a follow-up with the Sword of Origin and the Sword of the End. Check those out if you haven't, they're great. You already know the links in the description. To check through this video, I might reveal some ideas for the next one. Also, feel free to comment some suggestions as well. Remember, it's not characters. But back to the current hands. Now, the Eikons and the Artifices are both simple yet incredibly deep vessels rooted in the rich history of both Valisthea and Alres, brimming with a wide range of power levels differing between each one, but still able to go beyond depending on the user's abilities. Yet between each other, even with some similarities, are the fundamental nature they're very different. So we'll have some fun breaking these two down and see which hand I truly would prefer to have and which I think is just simply superior. Also, please subscribe if you're looking forward to this video and more like this, because I got a lot more coming. So how about we start with the Eikon. Magical beings with godlike strength that dwell within human hosts that become known as dominants, only revealing themselves when said dominants perform a prime, which I honestly think is actually one of the coolest approaches they could have done in this game. These beings have both been worshipped and feared in the long history of Valisthea due to their world-breaking power and values as both divine protectors, and yet even with all their power, slaves turned weapons of war due to them being still confined to just a human. So the Final Fantasy summons we all know, but this is the first game we really get to see the scale of their power on a whole new level consistently. There are 9 Eikons with different elemental powers, unique abilities, and reasons to fear them, but most of all, the message they send to each and every nation other than them, whether they have an Eikon to back the power or not. Each dominant of the Eikons said to gain some personality traits of the Eikon's nature. Unlike the Artifices though, not all of the Eikons are colossal, even if they're big in comparison to people at least. Sometimes their higher size speaks to the fear people have of them, and other times it's simply their power, despite being smaller, that makes specific Eikons extreme threats. The biggest of them all being the Eikon of Earth, Titan. Just look at how much larger he is in comparison to those of Shiva and Ifrit. Not to mention its dominant, Hugo Kupka, being a man of extreme wealth, intelligence, and stubbornness, having led his nation to prosperity, all while being one of the strongest and most threatening dominants of an Eikon to ever live. For the other Eikons, you have the aforementioned Ifrit, second dominant of fire, and Shiva, dominant of ice. Ifrit's element on top of beast-like disposition makes him not only an expert at up-close aggression, but capable of long-range attacks. Shiva has the most human appearance, but one that's pale with lifeless eyes, reflecting the coldness of her presence, completely separate from her dominant's true personality. Her ice allows extreme defensive prowess alongside immense offensive ice attacks with both creativity and simplistic domination. Phoenix, the first Eikon of fire, possessing lighter and more beautiful flames, not aggressive like Ifrit, but just as powerful, specializing in mid to long range attacks. Its biggest calling card being healing and resurrection, just like the legend. Garuda, the vicious harpy of wind, having 2 pairs of wings, massive claws, and capable of creating storms and tornadoes. Ramuh, the stalwart wizard of lightning, dressed in a purple robe and armed with a staff shaped like a lightning bolt, capable of throwing it just as fast. Then Leviathan, the Eikon of water, mysterious, serpent-like, and relentless, as adaptable, patient, and unforgiving as water itself. Then the only Eikons with more renown than Titan of Earth, the massive stone giant that controls all Earth in diverse ways, but can also create a force field for deflection despite being far smaller than him, are the legendary Bahamut, Wyvern of Light, and Odin, the ominous Knight of Darkness with his accompanying 6-legged horse. The powers between these 3 are so great that even the people that have them as part of their nation, including in the dominant's opinions, don't desire to do combat with each other, at least for long, especially between the bombastic powers of Titan and Bahamut in fear of destroying the world itself. But at the very top, beyond human knowledge, is the Eikon's creator, Ultima, able to wield the power of them all and more. Now, as those that have played Final Fantasy XVI know, there's tons more to Ifrit and Ultima, but I won't spoil those things as I'm keeping the hands line up purely to the icons in general, because Ultima technically doesn't count, and if it has some special things thanks to being tied to the main character Clive for narrative reasons, but I don't think I'll even need to touch those for the premise of this video and to make my choices. But there is one more facet of the icons I need to mention, thanks to the fact that they cannot exist without a host, aka a dominant. There's the fact that these dominants do not need to fully prime into the full icon, but they can perform a semi-prime, where they retain their human form, yet are able to gain power and visual changes to their body from their icon's magic. It's a half transformation essentially, and it's so cool to have that option. Just more to take into consideration, man, when you choose one. Oh, also when they're fully primed, they're able to survive in space with no struggle. But one more thing that really makes an impact in both of their respective hands' games is the presence that they have on the world itself, whether from the icons and the artifices themselves or those that utilize their power. Like I said before, they do an amazing job in the world, building up the sheer magnitude of the icons and all of those factors, and it really shows off Final Fantasy's scale of power through its most loyal iconic factor, the summons. It really gives us a lot to think about, especially with how cinematically blessed we were in this game. Now for you viewers, if you choose the icon at your hand, let me know even which one you'd like to be the dominant of, and put hashtag whatever that name is on your comment for the secret code. And underway scrolling down there, please go ahead and press subscribe, because my project this year gonna go crazy. I got a lot in store. Sorry I've been backed up, but I'm working on a lot. I'm gonna up my consistency for sure. Support and show some love with a sub, and stay tuned for more. I appreciate you all. So on that note, let's move on to our second hand, the Artifice. Unlike the icons, the Artifices are exclusively mechs and not biological. They're powerful machines used in the ancient Aegis War, pilotable solely by an Aegis. Now there's quite a handful of them too, of different powers, size, energy, and capabilities, but all of them actually are powered by the Trinity processor through the energy of the unknown limits of the conduit. Again, one's different from the icons though. This energy of ether is less magical and more processed from maybe a natural source, but its power is immense and dangerous nonetheless. Now, more similar to the icon, there's a sort of hierarchy to the powers of them, in having power alone or having power in the sheer mention of them as well. At the bottom, there's the Artifice Colossals. Although still very much a mech, their powers are basic with not many arts to fight with, and not even one for an Aegis to bother manually piloting. Then a step up, we have the Artifice Gargoyles, minions of the Aegis Malos and above grunts in status, but under Malos himself and his own kind of artifice, which we'll expand on next. These gargoyles have less data gathering and info seeking than the Colossus, and rely way more on onslaught, real driving forces to do work the Colossus couldn't handle in large numbers. Their arts in the form of beams, blasters, barrages, and even up-close physical attacks, all on top of specialized defense against elemental ether abilities. Now on the same level, we have the Artifice Ophion, which is personal to the Aegis Pneuma like the gargoyles are to Malos. Now the difference with Ophion is instead of depending on overwhelming force and numbers and tricky defenses, it is but one massive snake-like creature that yet still can be submerged by the Cloud Sea. Kind of like Leviathan when you think about it. But because of its residence there, it has become a haunting message for the people of Alrest, almost like an impassable monster defending the World Tree. Ophion is almost everything you can ask for in attack, defense, and fear factor. A plethora of arts to blast away enemies, whittle them down, and fire, wide blast radius attacks, and protective force fields. Then the second highest from the top in the hierarchy are the Artifice Sirens. Each of the Aegises has access to one of different affinity and designs. The Sirens are full-scale mechs that can be controlled externally or piloted from within. Essentially, the second trump card of the Aegises outside of their Trinity processor weapon, with speed and destructive power both physically and an energy output enough to level cities and nation-sized titans without struggle whatsoever. So really, they're basically just like the mobile suits. Shout out to my Gundam fans. Each also possesses the capability of full space travel while protecting the rider from exposure, or if the Sirens remain in space, the Aegis down on the planet can still remotely control it to command attacks from above at light speed without loss in power over distance. The Sirens express the most maneuverability in combat, but also draw so much raw power that if the Aegis is not in full control, it can become consumed by the Siren's energy consumption so much that it can lose control, similar to the connection between blade and driver needing to be balanced to not overpower and harm one or the other. But even still, at the very top sits Artifice Ion. Ion is the most powerful artifice and is able to be controlled by either Aegis, and its power eclipses the Sirens. The Sirens are on a general countrywide scale of destructive power, but Ion is capable of destroying all of Alrest itself. Even before the formation of Alrest, it was meant to be the trump card after the failure of the Sirens due to its closest channeling of energy from the conduit. It contains arts with elemental attacks of electric, ice, wind, light, dark, earth, water, and fire. Amongst these arts are ones that can summon the Artifice Colossi, gargoyles, and even more sirens to battle, along with a widespread AoE that can incinerate anything in its path, proper heat sink, physical attack and raging, and combining set elements with physical attacks for a variety of methods to dish out damage in mid-range. And besides all of that, the sheer power makes it a visual spectacle and beauty to simply behold. So, the world-bending biological meta manifestations of the Eikons, or the cold, calculated technological marvels of energy prowess of the Artifices. Choose your hand. Which would you choose of the two to have, and which do you think is superior? Remember, these are two different things. Now, there's a lot to consider here, because many don't mind strength but don't care about being the strongest, you know? Others love a good light show or mechanical marvel, and some love a sick transformation and political or social influence with their abilities. Now, this is the absolute hardest decision in a choose your hand yet for me. But for the hand I'm choosing, although it was super close on this one, I choose the Eikon for both factors of what I would prefer to have and what I think is also more powerful. Now hear me out on that second factor. I got a reason, of course, to put the guns away, Xenoblade 2 typers. Believe me. Like I said, both have varying options with different levels and types of power, and I'm fully aware, of course, of how powerful Ion especially is and the potential of the conduit's power. Even though it's unlimited, the amount used is still dependent on the user themselves, so it's hard to think of a scale of power never seen, you know? Not to mention, as strong as Ion is, the Ion Artifice itself honestly doesn't have that much maneuverability. Then when I compare it to the strongest Eikon, or even strongest four being Ifrit, Titan, Odin, and Bahamut, I can see Ion being stronger than Ifrit and Titan, even maybe Titan Lost, but I honestly don't know if I can justify Ion's power being able to surpass Odin and especially Bahamut given their unique abilities. Odin for his sheer specialized sword skill of being able to cut through almost anything, be it darkness, physical attack power, and maneuverability. Then even more so, Bahamut, I don't think I can see Ion being comparable to Bahamut in any category except defensive prowess. Don't forget, the Ion through the Aegis isn't the only one that's special with godlike power. And when it comes to sheer power output, energy reserves, ferocity, physical attack speed and power, mobility, not to mention by nature of technology being limited by its construction rather than a biological being able to withstand much more of its own power. Even though I said their defensive capabilities are similar, resilience is a different factor, and I think that's what gives Bahamut an even bigger edge than he already has in my eyes. I think even if Bahamut had less power than Ion, Bahamut's relentless and stubborn nature could do so much to overwhelm the sluggish Ion and the power reserves of the Aegis. And again, Bahamut is just as known for his deity level of power and world-ending potential, having some of the most powerful spells in Final Fantasy, RPGs, and fiction in general, with possessing Zeta Flare, Celestial Foundry, and the infamous Supernova. But I gotta give it to the Eikons on both fronts. Let me know what you guys think. Which you would like to have if you could pick, not the objective better one, but you can also tell me that too. Leave suggestions for the next choose your hand. It doesn't have to be limited to video games. Some of my ideas right now are the Mega Man X Ultimate Armor versus Kid Icarus's 3 Sega Treasures, the Noise from The World Is With You versus the Heartless from Nobodies from Kingdom Hearts, the 4 bending types against each other, 4 bending types as in Avatar The Last Airbender, the Organization 13's powers against each other, and I want to do one with Majora's Mask, but I don't know what I would put against Majora's Mask. Leave me some ideas for that one below. And like I said, the theme of these videos are for them to be comparable type things. But yeah, I also have more ideas, but I'm not going to reveal those yet. Thank you all for watching. Subscribe if you haven't to stick around for more original content like this in the future, and hit the bell so you stay notified of each and every one, including my mini streams. See you all in the next video.